This is a Nice Guys Patreon exclusive.
Welcome to another NHL team season preview video. 32 teams in 32 days rolls along right here on the Ice Guys, and it's time to talk Philadelphia Flyers hockey. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and joining us to talk Flyers is the man from Philadelphia himself. You know him well. He was on the show with us Mondays this past season on the Ice Guys. We'll be having him back many times again this year on the show. Brett Skalski to talk about his favorite team, the Philadelphia Flyers. Brett, welcome to this Flyers season preview video. How are things?
Good. Summer's been good. We're getting right back into it, though, with my own season going on and travel and coaching all the games. But good off season, rest, recuperate, recharge. Ready to go, though, for next season, Flyer season.
No doubt. A Philadelphia Flyers season where, look, you could say they're ahead of schedule with what the Flyers accomplished last year, in that they were pushing for a playoff spot. They were right in the mix to get into the playoffs, right down to game 82, the last night of the regular season. But how much of that was just playing over your heads? How much of that was overachieving? Maybe a little bit. And how much of that was, a lot of the advanced numbers don't paint a very good picture of what the Flyers did last year, that a lot of it was smoke and mirrors. That being said, this was a Philadelphia team that, from a work ethic standpoint, never been an issue with John Tortorella since he's been there. You've often got, this team working their ass off every night to get the results that they ended up achieving. And that's going to be something that they're probably going to rely on, that foundation of just hard work and outworking the opponent. And there will be times last year, I'm sure opponents maybe took the Philadelphia Flyers a little bit for granted, like, hey, this is 2 points waiting to happen. And it didn't always turn out that way, obviously. But I think when you look at this team last year, just from last year's numbers overall, the clear sore spot for the Philadelphia Flyers, the power play. It was dismal. It was absolutely horrendous. There's no denying that whatsoever. And they made all kinds of alterations throughout the season to try to make it better as it went along. I will say there were little flashes, little pulses of improvement when you saw that they, a couple of their defensemen, including Jamie Drysdale, who was someone they got from Anaheim, start to become more of a focal point on that power play. But still, for the entirety of the season last year, you're talking about a Flyers power play that was dead last in the NHL as far as a percentage. So clearly there's going to have to be some improvement there. And when you look at the roster that the Philadelphia Flyers have, goal scoring is obviously the main concern. I mean, this is the power play was horrendous last year. No question about that. The overall offense wasn't much better. 2.82 goals per game. Only Washington, Seattle, Anaheim, San Jose, and Chicago scored fewer goals per game last year than the Philadelphia Flyers. So if you don't have the game breakers, if you don't have that blue chip upper echelon elite finishing talent up front, can you legitimately expect the Philadelphia Flyers to improve on the power play this year? Because a lot of it's going to boil down to, Sean Couturier and Tyson Forster, Owen Tippett, who I thought was one of the better Flyer forwards for a majority of last year, the way he played. Someone that could obviously shoot the puck, but also scored those tough goals in front of the net. He got 28 from him, 53 points last year from Owen Tippett. I think a lot is going to boil down to Bobby Brink, Farabee, supplying that secondary offense. And I'm looking at two players in particular. He's been a very good offensive player, but he's been in Tort's doghouse, in and out throughout his tenure with the Flyers. But we did see improvement late in the regular season, and that's Morgan Frost, penciled in right now as the 2 center spot for the Philadelphia Flyers heading into the season. He's an X factor. If this team's going to improve and be a better offensive team, including with the man advantage, Morgan Frost has to play a part in that. And the other, of course, is the Russian that's going to join the team and likely be on the team right from opening night, and that's Matvei Mishkov. They have great, hopes for, to be that dominant, sniper, to be that player that's going to be that spark offensively for the Philadelphia Flyers. There's no denying what he's capable of. There's no question about that. The number 7 overall pick in the 2023 NHL draft. And keep in mind, last year, 41 points, 19 goals in 47 games. He's playing professional for Sochi in the KHL. He's not playing junior hockey. He's playing with the big boys So the fact that, you look at the numbers and you think, it's nothing spectacular, but the fact that he's a young kid playing with pros, in a professional league, it's actually not bad, the output he had there with the KHL last year. So lots going to fall on his shoulders. If Frost and Mishkov have good seasons, Drysdale, I like the fact that the power play did look better when Drysdale was on it last year. There's no doubt. So from the blue line. So that's a good thing. But obviously, they're going to have to score more goals this year, because you look at the other side of the puck for this team last year, and defensively for the Philadelphia Flyers, overall, they were still, bottom half. Actually, they were closer to the middle of the pack. Philadelphia, 3.15 goals per game. But as horrible and wretched as the power play was, this team, believe it or not, in the regular season had the fourth best penalty kill in the NHL. They were very good as far as thwarting the man advantage. There's only 3 teams, Rangers, Kings, and Hurricanes last year, that in the regular season had a better penalty kill than the Philadelphia Flyers. So the good news is they were able to get one part of the special teams working. You got to think they're still going to be a pretty good above average. I don't know if they'll be fourth again, but they'll probably be top 10, because Torts demands that you're a good penalty killing team. He demands that you block shots. That's Mando when it comes to John Tortorella head coaching your team. So I think they're still going to be a really good penalty kill team. Question's going to be that power play and the offense in general, whether they're going to be able to score more goals this year. You look at the blue line, it's going to be Cam York, Travis Sanheim, Nick Seeler, Jamie Drysdale, Igor Zamula, Rasmus Ristolainen, predominantly going to be your 6 that they're going to start the season with on the blue line. They do have the veteran, although getting up there in years, and I don't know how much is left in the tank, considering he didn't have a great year last year, but Eric Johnson still on that blue line as well for the Flyers. Not a whole lot of change there. I like the improvement we saw at times from Sanheim last year. Jamie Drysdale defensively does have some issues at times, but there's no doubt as far as moving the puck and quarterback in the power play, he's good with that. Zamula, his progression is going to be important. Cam York's progression is going to be important for this team. There's still some question marks there. You're going to need a lot from Cam York. You're going to need Sanheim to play well. Nick Seeler, I like him, but second pair, I don't know about that. But so there are some questions on that blue line for the Flyers. In net, it's fascinating. Samuel Ersson, clearly after what happened with Carter Hart. Carter Hart's out of the picture because of the World Junior Canadian team scandal that he's likely going to pay the piper for. You're looking at Sam Ersson, who had his ups and had his downs last year. But what I like is that he had a great stretch when he first took over as the number 1 guy, had a bad run after that, and then he kind of got it back again late in the season, faced some mental adversity and overcame it a little bit. That's a positive, I think, for Samuel Ersson going into this season. Now, is he going to be the undisputed number 1 goalie? I think it's probably his job to lose in training camp, but he will be pushed by Ivan Fedotov. But we didn't see enough of him. It was a very small sample size last year when he got called up to the Philadelphia Flyers. His numbers weren't very good in minimal duty last year, but again, we didn't see him a lot. We only saw him in those 4 games down the stretch against the Islanders, Sabres, and the Canadians, just 3 games that he ended up getting involved in. 4.96 goals against, 811 save percent. Very ugly numbers, but I mean, it's a very small sample size. So it's kind of a wait and see approach for me when it comes to Ivan Fedotov. I'm not ready to say, hey, this guy's no good after 4 games. I mean, let's be patient. Let's calm down a little bit. See how he does in training camp. Full camp now with the Flyers. See how he does in regular season duty. Obviously, he's going to play a shit ton more games than 4 if he makes the team. There's no question about that, because he's essentially the backup now to Ersson. So I'm not ready to be judge, jury, and executioner right now for Ivan Fedotov's NHL career after 4 games. Let's wait and see. I'm not ready to say he's going to be good. I'm not ready to say he's going to be bad. I want to wait and see what we get from him. So, look, the Flyers last year, I mean, the numbers aren't always pretty with them. And there is that feeling that John Tortorella squeezed the orange and squeezed the lemon dry. He got every ounce and every drop out of this team that he possibly could. That regression is on the way. There's that camp, and I get that fully. I think it comes down to Mishkov, Frost, and that top 6. And Couturier's health is very important too. Can he, get through a top? And look, he's and a better season from him. Look, he's another guy. Tortorella benched him for a period of last year. You know, a guy that's been one of the forefronts of this Flyers organization for years. So it's going to be interesting to see what he's got left in him because, look, for better or worse, you know, he's number one center to begin the year. So they're going to need a better season without a doubt out of Sean Couturier. There's no question about that. So it's one of those teams where a lot's going to have to go right. That blue line, especially the young guys like York and Sanheim, Zamula, Drysdale, they're going to have to really continue to hone their talent, get better. And then Ersson and Fedotov in net. What do you get from them is going to be the question. Now, the good news is Tortorella demands defensive accountability, demands blocking shots, makes life easier on the goaltender most nights, no question about that. But there's still question marks really about Ersson as a viable number one, a surefire number one, and certainly what we're going to get from Fedotov behind him. They are going to work their bag off because that's what John Tortorella teams do. Will it be enough is the gigantic question. I'm going to give a small lean to the yes, that they just barely make the playoffs. But like I said, just one of those things doesn't go right. The offense doesn't improve. Mishkov's not ready yet for the NHL. Frost doesn't take a step offensively, and just overall. The defense, you know, kind of it doesn't get better as a group, especially the young guys. And the goaltending is not great. If all those things happen, there won't be any playoffs for the Philadelphia Flyers. So it's a very volatile team. Variance is definitely in play for the Philadelphia Flyers. They have a high variance type of threshold this season. Things could really go down the tubes, go off the rails, and yet they could find themselves just maybe squeaking into the playoffs as well. I think it's a very high variance hockey team coming into the season. Alex, we'll turn to you. What do you think here, Philadelphia Flyers?
Yeah, this is a weird team, and I have them ranked in my power rankings right in the middle at 15th, which, of course, anything with my power rankings from 10 to 25 is kind of a fluid motion group, right? Especially at the beginning of the year. But this Flyers team, you know, we were talking about a rebuild a couple of years ago with this group, and that's why they brought in Tortorella to have somebody that could, you know, still spark some energy amongst the younger players, try and instill that winning, that Broad Street culture. He's certainly of that ilk to try to bring things to that kind of level. But I think everybody got carried away with those pair of 5-game win streaks early last year, and now all of a sudden this team could be, oh, they're all of a sudden now one of the, you know, middling powers in the East that they could, you know, fight with the, you know, New York Islanders and the Buffaloes and the Detroits of the East and make themselves a playoff team. And I don't think they're there this just yet. I think that they need to go back to the process of looking at this as being part of a rebuilding year, especially when you look at what's on deck for them from a draft perspective. 6 picks between the first and second round next year, 12 picks in total. And you have the cap going up, and you have a couple of contracts that are, you know, big price contracts that are coming off the books. Ryan Johansson, who's on injured reserve, being one of them. I think you could really take a year to, you know, maybe, like I said, unless you're competitive right out of the gate, if this team is not anywhere around 500 or in, I'd say, top 3 contention for these, never mind wild card, top 3 contention in the Metro by American, Thanksgiving or Christmas, you know, knock it down, make some trades, fold on this year, and try to get yourself into a good position to where you can do something with those draft picks next season, along with having the open money in free agency. And Philly will be a legitimate team, I think, to make the playoffs next year and make some noise within the Eastern Conference. I think if you rush it this year and you kind of, you know, waste the hand you have dealt as far as the draft goes, then you might be setting yourself back for another 2-3 years before you're contending. I think this is now one of the times I said the same thing talking about the Minnesota Wild as well, where if you fold here this season, you have a chance to really open up and do some big things down the road. And I think that's the case for Philly. It wouldn't be in their best interest unless they can go on and win the whole damn thing, which I don't think any of us would say that they're on that level. They'd have to be on a miracle run to do that. I say that they should, you know, punt on this season, you know, utilize those draft picks you have next year and then make a real run for it and really start to build things because everything's going in the right direction. Like you said, you've got these, you know, young Russians coming over, especially with the goalie Fedotov. Really interested to see what he can do with a full year in North America, full year. Even if he's in the NHL, in the NHL as a backup, I'd rather see him get time here as a backup with Philly than go to Lehigh Valley and get 45, 50 games, in my opinion. I think he has the talent based on what we've seen and heard to where if he gets accustomed and gets comfortable, he could easily jump ahead of Ersson and be the number 1 goalie on this team this year. So maybe look at him for some Calder Trophy props. That's the only thing I would be kind of maybe leaning toward. Other than that, I have nothing as far as future bets go for Philly. It's an interesting team to watch in the long run, but I think for this year, it would behoove them to probably end up being a team that loses out late and capitalize on that draft capital you have in the cupboard.
Yeah, if you think Connor McDavid, by the way, his points per game numbers are awesome NHL wise, which is awesome for the National Hockey League, the best league in the world. I'll say this about Mishkov. In the Russian under 16 league he was in, he had 109 points in 26 games 1 year.
Jesus.
109 points in 26 games. Now that's Russian under 16. Like it's not like real high level, but nevertheless, I mean that's utter dominance.
That's like
silly.
Gretzky and Mario Lemieux numbers in juniors. When you're talking about that, any junior league in this world to have that many points in that few games is incredible.
And even at the under 20 over there, 56 points in 56 games, and apparently beat a record for points in that Russian under 20 division set by Nikita Kucherov. So that's a pretty nice company to be in there for Matvei Mishkov. And clearly everyone's excited to see what he can deliver here at the NHL level. There's no question. The other thing that concerns me, because look, they just have to score more goals and the power play has to be better, period, or else there's not going to be any playoffs for Philadelphia. What concerns me is that they're such a wretched offensive team in spite of career highs for goals for the now just re-upped in the offseason, Travis Konechny. So, he got the money, he got the bag, and the players always strive for that big season, that productive, big statistical year when they're battling for a new contract and looking for that big money. Now he's been paid. What if he steps back? What if he's not a 30-goal guy this year? What if he's 20, 25? And what if Frost doesn't pull his weight? Mishkov's not ready yet to be a dominant offensive force. What happens if Couturier has a bad down year again? What if Forster doesn't pull up his level of offense too for this team? Then their offensive doldrums are going to continue. So that's the thing. And that's the amazing part about the offensive struggles. That was a career high and an amazing season from Konechny. And yet here they are still struggling to score goals. And here they are with the worst power play in the NHL last year in spite of that.
Doesn't this team seem like a bunch of really good second and third line scorers? Like if we were to split this whole
square peg into round hole theory with some.
If we were to split this whole forward group up and put these guys in different places, we go, this guy would be great here in Chicago or here in Pittsburgh, here in San Jose. You could name a team and name a player, and you could fit them anywhere else. But for some reason, all together in this lineup, it doesn't look like they're the greatest offensive. Like I said, it doesn't seem like some nights they give you 5 goals, some nights they give you 2. Yeah. Even though they're all quality players in their roles, it seems like there's. We talk about this with a couple of other teams where everybody's looking for cohesiveness and balance amongst a forward group. But this forward group almost seems like it's a bunch of the same guys. And it seems like no one can really step up and take off and be the sniper. It seems like there's I think that happens a lot when you talk about teams that end up passing too much. We talk about overpassing, especially in the power play, is that you don't have anybody who's, sometimes you need a selfish guy to say, hey, I'm going to step up and score the goal. And maybe Mishkov can be that guy. But that's what one of the problems I see, that they're almost too selfless. They're almost too, all the things and qualities we like about a hockey team, they almost do in excess to the point of where nothing stands out to the point of where there's anything consistent, especially on the offensive end, and it does lead to them getting a lot of wins.
No doubt. Brett, what do you think? Your Flyers, they're a conundrum to me to figure out going into the season. Where do you stand with them?
They really are. Like you said, it was career highs for like Tippett and Konechny. But at the same time, look at how bad of a season Couturier and Atkinson had too. Right? Atkinson didn't even have 30 points last year.
And by the way, Atkinson's looking to revitalize his career in Tampa now.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, this team's very very odd. They're a very young team too. It's all going to depend on if these guys can take one more step up and perform, right? Guys like Forster, Frost, Farabee, Bobby Brink was very inconsistent last year. So, I think adding the Russian in, hopefully Drysdale can stay healthy and Ristolainen can stay healthy. That'll be a big help defensively for Urson and Fedokov. I kind of have them pegged exactly where they finished last year, battling for that last wild card with the Caps and Islanders. Really, so I put a little bit on them to make playoffs at plus 200, but I just thought it was value. I thought 50-50 shot. They're either that last wild card or just out of it. So why not take that plus 200?
Yeah, the price is not bad. It's just that it still feels going into this season with the Flyers, a lot has to friggin' go right. Again, a lot has to go right. Konechny can't take a step back now that he got the money. Couturier's got to have a better year. Obviously, it goes without saying. I can't believe what we saw from him, quite honestly, last year. Yeah. Forster, more good in flashes, no doubt. More consistency. Tippett doesn't have to change much. Tippett was really good. He could make a case. Him and Konechny, the best forwards, no doubt, for the Philadelphia Flyers.
They're banking on him taking one more step too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
they gave him a long-term contract as well last year.
If you need half a team. If you need half a team to play their best hockey again for the second straight time in their career or get to their career best, it's not always a good time.
I don't know if it's playing their best, though. I think it's just developing further because they're all still so young, right? Except for really Couturier and Lawton. I mean, look at Brink, Farabee, Frost. They're, 2-3 seasons in? Forrester, 2-3 seasons in?
Yeah.
I do agree with Alex what you said about Kolosov, though. They need to get him NHL games this year to keep him number one in the States.
Yeah.
So he doesn't go back to Russia. But also, I mean, Urson was good last year when he was in a tandem with Hart. Yeah. And when Hart left, he fell off a cliff. So, even their goalies are giant question mark.
Yeah, let's cut Harrison some slack, right? He's thrust into the number one goalie out of fucking nowhere all of a sudden. He wasn't expecting that. Torts said that a million times in his press conferences down the stretch when he was struggling. Let's calm down a little bit. This guy just got the number one job thrown into his lap because of Carter Hart's transgressions from the past that sunk him. And now all of a sudden we're asking him to show up every single night and be at his best. That's a learning process. That's a learning curve. That doesn't happen automatically. That doesn't happen overnight. So I still need to see more from him, Erson, and there's no question I need to see more from Fedotov. I can't say 4 shit games and you're not going to have any kind of career. I got to see more.
Yeah. I mean, in the last 10 games, Erson gave up 5 goals or more 4 or 5 times. He was gassed.
Yeah, that too.
And they went with Felix Sandstrom, and he was giving up 8.
Yeah,
every game and just terrible. Or
they had fucking Cal Peterson there for just a period. That was even worse. Yeah, that was just.
And that's the thing. If Fedotov, if he's not ready to go and needs some seasoning in the A, then you got Peterson and E2 Makaniemi, who came over from the San Jose organization, who I don't think much highly of. So that's also a problem too. You got
San Jose's coming off of a goalie. That's a red flag.
Yeah. So you have Erson off of a big season where he wasn't expected to play as many games, as many minutes. You got Fedotov, who's coming over and trying to get acclimated to North America, and then you've essentially got 2 bums in the AHL. So that's not a good spot to stand in, especially when you talk about a middle of the road team.
No doubt. Like I said, this is interesting. This is just going to be a team that's going to be really, really interesting to watch. Because, like I said, it could go right down the shithole for them this year. And they actually could be. I could even see bottom 5, bottom 10 in the league. If things really don't go right for them and injuries mount and the offense doesn't take a step and the goaltending struggles. And what if this young blue line just isn't, up to the task either? Because they're going with a lot of guys. We're going with Cam York as a number 1 pair defenseman. I mean, let's see it. He's got the capability, but in that kind of spot, it goes to what Alex said. They're putting big roles, big responsibility on the shoulders of a lot of these players that we're not sure they're ready for it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it will come down to just how they start. They start well, they can ride that momentum. If they don't, like you said, I see it snowballing going the wrong direction. And it's going to be a lot of it on Mitchkov too. Not to put a lot of weight on him, but he starts well and can adjust quickly to the NHL, it'll be really good things, I think. But if it starts slow and it takes them a little while to adjust and their goal scoring still hasn't improved, could go backwards in a hurry.
They have a big 6-game road trip starting December 23rd against Pittsburgh, taking them out to the West Coast for 4 games through the new year,
Yeah.
and then ending up with Toronto. I think that stretch will be by that point they can kind of assess where they're standing at that point, and either say, "Hey, we're just going to try and pack it up this season and go for next year," or they're going to try and make a run for it.
Yeah. And you were talking about it before we came on, Alex, the draft picks. I think they've got plenty. I could see Briere packaging some to get something at the deadline if they're in that chase. Just
Sure,
to,
yeah.
like last year, they were in the chase, traded away Walker. I think this year the opposite happens, and if they're in it, he rewards the team by adding.
I do too. Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I honestly
and
do.
that-
Even though
and-
this is still a team thinking long term, I just don't know if they're going to say, you know what, for a second straight year, we're in the mix for the playoffs at the trade deadline. And for a second straight year, we're going to tell the fan base, no, we're not going to upgrade. We're not going to make changes.
Yeah.
But you weren't supposed to be in the mix for the playoffs last year.
That's
You were
the thing.
supposed to be tanking last year, and you just got off to a hot start. So that's
Yeah.
the thing. That's where I'm like. That's where I'm like. Sometimes the train gets derailed a bit, and it's like, okay, but you got to still keep. Are we changing courses or not? And that's what
Yeah.
that's the thing. Philly didn't make it seem like they didn't make a bunch of moves this year to make it seem like the course is being changed. Now, we're a contending team. And it's like I said, you still have those picks. You have enough picks to package something if
Yeah.
you are contending this year.
Yeah.
But that was never really the goal last year.
No.
So how does that, yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
It wasn't the goal, and they didn't do it though. They still traded away. So he stuck to his guns. I think this year just the opposite, that they add, because like if you're Konechny, and like you said, you're in this situation again, and you're saying, "Oh, this time we're going to trade, Ristolainen." He's probably thinking, "What the hell?" Like, I think they add if they're close.
One thing's for sure, we're going to find out the patience threshold of Danny Briere and Keith Jones this year. There's no question about that. Do they stay the course regardless of where we're at and think long term with this building up the franchise again? Or is there going to be a little pressure on them that, hey, we're 3 points out of the playoffs at the trade deadline. Let's make a move or two to, add at the deadline and try to make this push for a spot. That's going to be the test toward Danny and Keith. How patient are they? We'll find out.
Let's just say this. At this given point, when we're talking about everybody playing healthy, everybody playing to their highest potential, do you trust in either one of these goalies to steal you a series in a 7-game series? To steal you at least a game or two in a 7-game series?
Not a series, but could they for a game? I've seen Harrison steal a game before. I have. When he's been on his game. He's done it. I haven't seen Fedotov do it, but I've seen Harrison do it. But doing it in the course of a playoff series is different, especially when you've never been in the playoffs before, which is the case, obviously, with Harrison.
I'm just thinking only the fans would gain something out of this team making a first-round exit based on where they stand right now. If they play hard and and get a wildcard spot and get bounced in 4 or 5 games, it's just for everybody to say they made it to the playoffs.
No.
They'd be better off being a bottom 10 team if you aren't going to compete and be and at least scare somebody in the first round in Philly's spot because of having the capital that you have and the spot that you have. It just wouldn't make sense.
But I think there is experience to gain from that.
Yeah, in due time.
Even if you get bounced in 5, right? You
something
realize how hard it is.
Getting a taste of it, right? That benefits you long term. Yeah,
and I think just for morale's sake, if you're close, you got to try and make the playoffs for the players' morale, because it's been since 7 years since we've had a home playoff game.
That's it. That's exactly why I'm saying, Brett, the patience threshold of Danny Briere and Jonesy, it's going to be put to the test here, because they know the right thing to do is be patient and go long term and maybe not go all, put your chips into the table on this year. But they also know the fan base is antsy. And and that's what makes it such an interesting team, because
you can make a case for either side. And like I said, obviously, yeah, the fans want to fucking win right now. I completely understand that, 1,000%. But at the same time, just on how things are laid out, and based on, like I said, you weren't trying to do what you even end up doing in the first half of last year. So how hard do you really want to run with? Oh yeah, we put together a solid first half. We could do that again next year. I just, like I said, Buffalo did that a couple years ago, and that's why Buffalo still hasn't made it to the playoffs, because I think they got really high on the couple of years they had with some hot first half starts, and then they didn't make moves they could have made, or end up playing themselves out of a lottery spot or a top spot, and then they end up having to make some transitions on the fly later on down the road. I just think the Flyers are in a good enough spot to where one more bad year, and then this team turns around, and they'll be a team that'll be dangerous. Where we're talking about betting their point totals over, and them actually making out of the first round of the playoffs, not just getting back into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think their team prospects, though, like Brett said, they've got a pretty good prospect pool right now with the Flyers. I'm just trying to see where some of these sites have them ranked, but I think they're pretty good as far as their prospect.
A lot of talent. They've drafted well. Like I said, the European scouting has done well. We'll find out more about that with Michkov and Fedorov. But yeah, like I said, I like the way that they're building.
They also have Denver Barkey and Radek Bonk's kid, Oliver Bonk, in the system, and both of those guys could be really good. Yep. Yeah.
So very, very bright future ahead for sure.
Should be interesting. This is going to be a very, like I said, interesting team because the outcomes,
the
plethora of outcomes. Yeah, no doubt. The plethora of outcomes are very plentiful when it comes to the Philadelphia Flyers, for sure, for this upcoming season. Any last words, Brett, before we wrap it up?
No, I'm looking forward to the season getting going. Training camps are all starting pretty soon, so I'll be looking on Twitter to see if Michkov did a Michigan yet, and Torts already wants to go crazy watching them. But
that's good.
That's what I can't wait for. Torts' reaction when he first does that in a game.
Yeah, Torts has a little bit of that look. He's
the other thing I think though,
he demands a lot, but he's still a little dinosaur when it comes to that stuff. Like, you got to let the kids do that every now and then.
Yeah, I do think though that he will be very, very patient with him.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, you didn't draft him to be a two-way forward. Right.
You drafted him to bolster an offense that badly needs bolstering.
You drafted him to work the half wall on your power play, which was at 9% or whatever the hell it was.
It was brutal. Yeah.
Right. So I think it might not be a bad look to look Michkov points. 46 and a half or 48 and a half.
Buy low. We don't know what we're going to get from. Look at this power play percentage last year.
But you also got to think he's like a volume running back. He's going to get every offensive opportunity possible too. And Couturier Lawton handle the defensive responsibilities, and Michkov's going to get every ozone start, every power play start to drive some offense.
He will. He's going to. Opportunity will not be in short supply for Matvei Michkov at the NHL level on the power play. 12.2%. There were no situations where a team was 3% better or 3% worse on the power play last year, with the exception of the drop from Columbus to Philly, from second last to dead last power play last year. That's how bad the power play was for Philadelphia. 12.2%. And obviously that's going to have to get better. Great stuff. That was worth taking a little extra time, because that's a very, very fascinating team to dissect this year, the Philadelphia Flyers. Great stuff. Alex B. Smith, Brett Skalski. We thank them, and Brett especially, for being with us. I'm Ian Cameron. This has been the Philadelphia Flyers NHL team season preview video. 32 teams in 32 days rolls along right here on the Ice Guys.